Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in with the time I got reincarnated as a slime. I'm covering right now episodes 10 and 11. Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Anyway, let's just get into it. So these two episodes are the big battle episodes. You know what? I enjoyed it. I loved it. This was what I was waiting for. I'm in. I'm 100% in. I want to see everything. I have this little screen of this guy here. Just don't mind it for now. Yeah, no, man. I can't really overstate how pleased I am with how this came out. I will say there are a few spots in episode 11 that I think the manga and the light novel, they kind of did better, but the spots that the manga has an advantage on are so small compared to how enjoyable the rest of the episode was. I do have one really good example because this is just a really good talking point. Allow me to show you here. Let me just show you this spot right here. I'm gonna go double time. So what this part here was just really saying was that Great Sage tried to evolve multiple times, right? In the anime, you understand that implication. Now, the thing that makes the light novel, I think, superior when it came to this is all the narration, because when you're reading it in the light novel, it just felt so much more epic because the narration just made Great Sage seem like more than what she was. The narration gave away more of her character than the way that the anime presented it here. What had happened was that Great Sage just kept trying over and over for Rimuru's sake. That's why it happened. So when you have the narration telling you why it went down, it gives you chills. And that's one part, unfortunately, that you didn't really get here. And you could have had it very simply by having someone else narrate that Great Sage didn't give up and tried over and over and over until finally Great Sage found a solution and evolved into Raphael. And so, really, that's one spot that, looking at it, I can't, I can't betray the light novel on this one. The light novel has a better setup, and that's really one of the unique places for narration. That's one of the places where narration really gives you something that you otherwise can't get from the anime presentation unless you have a very powerful narrator. Really, it's little things like that. The majority of the episode, however, and the previous episode are pretty solid. So I have the light novel right in front of me, so just so that you get a taste of like what the narration did here, I'm just gonna give you a little bit here. Rimuru was in a deep sleep. His consciousness was gone. He was an irregular, unresolved blob, not even able to retain his usual streamlined form. And there, in the deep, deep darkness beyond the reaches of Rimuru's consciousness, Great Sage was doing stuff. This is where you got all the commands. I'm not going to copy that because that's just a lot of skills being brought up. But then it goes on. Attack acquired. Evolution is now complete. Then, as if responding to its master command, the unique skill Great Sage, which never demonstrated having a sense of self before, requested its own evolution. Report: re-executing skill acquisition requested earlier. Unique skill Great Sage. Attempting evolution failed. Failed. Re-executing failed. Re-executing failed endless amount of times. Report: this is where Great Sage sacrificed the skill. The Great Sage attempted it without sacrificing anything several hundred million times, and then after a trial and error process that seemed like it would last for all of time, it obtained its Harvest Festival gift, conquering and evolving into an ultimate skill, the loftiest height possible in the world. And this is where it gets better. The chances of this working were thought to be so small that it wasn't even worth considering. It almost seemed like a reward provided for the infinite effort involved with the attempt. Succeeding made it more likely that it could carry out its master request. But the supposedly soulless conceptual intelligence bore no happiness. It could never understand emotion, but despite the lack of emotion, the lack of happiness, somehow it felt fulfilled. And then, with the evolved skill, it carried out its master's request once more. The way it acted, working incessantly to make its master's dream come true, could even be dot dot dot. The evolution continued. Gluttony consumed Merciless to become Beelzebub, Lord of Gluttony, perfectly honed to more effectively handle its master's desire. There, deep in an abyss beyond what Rimuru's soul can detect, the skill softly, deeply evolved itself, all to make his own dreams come true. See, look at that narration. What a beautiful narration. I get chills even reading it. You don't get that level of raw idea of what was going on here. That level of description is completely missing in the anime. And again, you know, this is uniquely what a light novel can do with good narration. It was just so good. When you're reading it, it really just feels epic. So that's the example of what narration does. And now let's go look at what the episodes did proper. So I'm going to turn back and I'm going to go back to episode, I believe it was 10. So structure wise, episode 10 is also super cool, right? Because episode 10 is essentially power demonstration. Actually, is that episode 10 I got here? Oh, oops, sorry, I went back too far. Episode 9. 1 second, I'm going to load up episode 10. So episode 10 is the comeback episode. Episode 10 is the revenge episode. So episode 10 is one of the cool things, because what the story had done for this novel is that it front loaded you with all this despair. You had our favorite characters getting beaten down because of unfair tactics. You know, when you see these characters falling in the previous episodes, that sense of the unfairness that plays into making episode 10 all the stronger, because now you get to see the characters fully when they're not being held back, seeing them get to go all out. What episode 10 also does is that it turns into power exposition. Mind you, some people, because they didn't have good opponents, they didn't really get wide exposition, but it was still cool. This is where you got to see a lot of people doing their best. You got to see a lot of people showing off their different abilities. You got to see people take down really annoying people, and in that regard, you also have to appreciate that the author did a really good job in making the Otherworlders for this scenario quite unlikable. Everything comes together in episode 10. If it wasn't for the insane amount of darkness in the previous portions, and if it wasn't for the unlikableness of these characters that were being presented, episode 10 would not have landed as well as it did. So episode 10, pretty much this entire novel, is a really good example of how to create bad situations, how to get viewers emotionally invested, or how to make it more likely that viewers get more emotionally invested, and then give them that really nice, satisfying payoff. And of course, also worth pointing out is that the characters were useful. Everyone got to be, well, not everyone, but you know, like a good chunk of them got to be useful. This would be a good example of just seeing how to manage a lot of different characters in a lot of different places. Now, I do recall for episode 10, episode 11, Shuna was put off to the side because she was busy doing stuff. But keep an eye out for future episodes and keep an eye out for future novels, because what this ultimately is, when you have a cast as big as Slime, what you ultimately end up seeing is a lot of different strategies to make sure characters get screen time. And one of the things that ends up happening with wide cast is that really you have to come to the conclusion that you're not going to be able to show everyone off over the course of 400 pages. What you have to do is plan in the long term. So for example, if you have Shuna doing something not that impressive here, you know, you take that hit in stride, and then you just give her something impressive in another book. There's nothing wrong with that, and the reality is most readers will be okay with that, given how bad anime is in general with making supporting cast characters matter. So, you know, for most readers, when you give characters time across 3 books or whatever, they're gonna appreciate it. And I do think Slime does a really good job in general with that idea. I think it has pretty solid character management. And I would definitely recommend Slime as an example of what to do when you have so many characters. Anything else that is really worth pointing out for episode 10? I mean, episode 10 is pretty simple. I'm not going to go into like hardcore details here. You had... I guess episode 10 had that level of subterfuge, it had that level of betrayal, it had that level of, well, okay, well, you know, you legitimately might not have expected the guy to, you know, betray the other person. So legitimately, in terms of the writing for, you know, the old man hijacking a body, I think worthy. That's worthy. If you were reading that week to week, you'd probably be like, it's a nice mild surprise. It's one thing that enhances it. This is definitely, I legitimately feel that this volume, the next volume, and the one after, very, very strong pieces of work from the author compared to like the ones before it. This is like really solid. So yeah, final words for episode 10. It is cathartic. It is a cathartic episode, and it's one that really makes you feel like, oh my god, it's so cool to see these characters doing shit and thwarting someone trying to be sneaky. It's cool when you see competent people going up against competent people, and it's cool to see where exactly how far their competence takes them. And in this case, Shogo got destroyed. All right, so going back to episode 11. So episode 11, you have Rimuru. You have Rimuru using Merciless. You have him destroying everyone. Awesome stuff. This is a pretty big moment for Rimuru because, it might be kind of distasteful to the regular audience, but this is one of those things where this is just Rimuru making it clear that he is not to be trifled with. He's not to be laughed at. Again, this is following the themes that the King Gazelle had warned Rimuru about. Rimuru has to show strength in this particular situation, and in this case, things are rough. We have Rimuru killing people really aggressively with Merciless, and then we also have him summoning a demon. And demons usually are not associated with good people. So it's playing around with the ideas of, what kind of person is Rimuru? Rimuru at this point is about the same as a king that wages war on another country. This is just, unfortunately, something like, this is just a casualty of war. This is just the burden of a king, and that's what this thing tries to do. Now with Rimuru's behavior here, I think it's justified. I think it makes sense. I think with what the anime was going for, or what the story was going for, it all makes sense. Now the anime might drop it drops the internal monologues and all that, but what can you really do? You can understand why this might be justified. In terms of the demon being summoned, I don't remember too much about him from the last season, about the extra details, but I know who the character is. He's really interesting. You see some interesting behaviors throughout the episode for him. I don't think I have it filtered out here. Oh yeah, no, this is where everyone revives. Oh, that was such a good moment. I don't have it filtered out here, but he has some interesting ideas. He has some interesting priorities. The big example for him is when his two companions are sacrificed in order to revive everyone. How he notes that he's envious. So this is very important because you have to understand how exactly these demons are thinking. This guy, the way that the author went into justifying how this character works is by giving him a blue and orange morality, or a morality that doesn't make sense. His morality is entirely centered on subservience. He wants to be useful to his master. That's it. He is good if he is useful. He is bad if he's not. So when you have that as your morality, it allows him to do many other things. But because he is centered so dramatically on Rimuru, what you end up with is that, he will be told not to do bad things, and so long as he makes Rimuru happy, because he's set that as his most fundamental desire in the world, it will work. When you look at this, pretty dangerous, because this character is willing to do anything, or as you can see, he doesn't really have an issue with doing anything. But by making it all about Rimuru, you have actually created a situation where you have this, what is essentially to us a being of evil, not being offended that he is not engaging in evil. I think that's the best way to think about it. It's a really neat mechanism. Usually, I think shifting the moral rules for characters like this is a good way of dealing with them in a way that doesn't make the story too dark, legitimately. Any other things to say about him? Well, towards the end, you could see that he was being very useful. Like, he did things like he dashed up to Rimuru when he had run out of energy and all that kind of stuff. He's a very loyal servant and all that. I think it was just cool to see him in general. Of course, following from last week, from the other episode being a power exposition episode, this was also power exposition for him. We got to see what was going on with him. We also had the mage calling him one of the primordial beings. So that's just just keep that in mind. That's or a primordial thing. That's just something important. I don't remember what exactly season 1 covered about it, but just keep in mind the details. He made a bad estimation about who he was. That's the thing that you should take away from this because of the way that it goes. Like he starts with asking if he's an archdemon, and he goes into a whole other conclusion that he is not just an archdemon. Oh, I think I got it here. There we go, the primordial. So you know, bigger things going on here. Episode 11 was mostly also Raphael's episode, just seeing Raphael be so badass and take control of the situation. Now the next thing I get to be looking out for are the gifts. People are getting a lot of gifts. I'm very excited. But overall, episode 10 is just the return on the investment for the side characters, and episode 11 is the birth of the Demon Lord Rimuru. Ultimately, both episodes are there to make you feel good about getting revenge and reviving Shion and the rest of the people. It was a fun time. We now begin the swing of Rimuru telling people to back the heck off. He's about to try and thwart many things. Overall, solid episodes. I really love them. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. I'm going to end it there. I don't have many other notes for the episode, because it's relatively straightforward. That's unfortunately something that happens when you have such a big battle going on. You don't really get a lot of big development. Oh, I guess there is something to note, is just humans are important for demon lords to be created. And that mechanism is interesting. Like, what's so important about a human soul, like for being nourishment? Yeah, nah. I think that's something. I think that's probably a plot point for the future, but I haven't gotten that far. But it's interesting. It's interesting that's specifically human souls. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought down below. I'm gonna leave it there, and till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.